American Fiction is written and directed by Cord Jefferson, which is such a cool name, and I am so jealous by it that it has to be a fake name, and is about a genius writer whose work hasn't been making much money, but when he decides to make a dumbed-down crowd pleaser, his joke goes way too far. I saw one trailer for this movie once, and from that one viewing, I thought to myself, okay, this does look like a funny, smart, and overall clever satirical look at how the entertainment industry views stories about people of color. It looks simple but smart, and overall I would say that is exactly what this movie is. Simple and smart. The acting in this movie is really good all around and is full of some of what I consider to be some of the most underrated talents in entertainment working today. I love Jeffrey Wright in almost every single thing that I see him in. He is so down to earth and so subdued. Even though he is constantly giving great performances, it never looks like he is overexerting himself. It looks like he is just giving the honest, simple, truthful performance of someone who would actually be in the situations that his characters are in. And considering that the character that he plays in this movie is equally subdued in his expressions, and all of his great mannerisms are through the simplicity on his face, it's a match made in heaven. And even though I love Jeffrey Wright in this movie, just like I always do in every single movie and TV show that he's in, just like every movie and TV show that he is in, Sterling K. Brown owns every single scene. He has to play such a realistically complex character that can easily be seen as so unlikable, but because of just how charming he is as a person, you just love every single time he is on screen. And my God, there are two scenes in this movie that focus on his character, and I honestly teared up both times. It is such a good performance, such a good character, and even though I love Jeffrey Wright in this movie, I think Sterling K. Brown owns this movie. Every single person in this film gives such a great performance and is so likable that they all feel so real, with the exception of just a couple of the more satirical characters, which we'll get into. Even though the main story of this movie, where Wright's character makes this bestseller that he absolutely hates, brings along with it a lot of kind of over-the-top elements that are a bit too tongue-in-cheek at times, overall, this is where the movie is at its strongest. These scenes are by far some of the funniest scenes in any movie this year, and are by far some of the most cleverly written of any movie this year. There are a lot of great themes in this movie about artistic integrity and where that line is drawn. Even though Wright's character has a lot of it and is extremely intelligent, he's not bringing in the big bucks that he needs to take care of his family. And even though the book that he writes is garbage, it is successful, it does bring in money, and he needs that money to take care of his family. So where does he draw that line? And when the movie went in depth with that theme, that is where I felt like this movie was at its strongest and most interesting. Not to mention all of the legitimately hilarious stuff with the social satire. I would say that the worst part about this movie isn't even technically the worst part about it, it's just the part that I found less interesting than the other parts. Even though I love all of these actors, I think they give great performances, and I think their characters are equally likable, I do think that the family dynamic of this film just sort of slowed the pacing down every single time we cut back to it, and took away from what was, in my opinion, the way more interesting storyline of the book. Don't get me wrong, overall, I really love that family dynamic, but the stuff with the book was just so interesting and so funny that it just sort of grabbed my attention more rather than the family aspect. But again, the family aspect of this movie is really good, really down to earth, and can be very relatable to a lot of people. I also feel like this movie was kind of rushed. I mean, the whole time span of this movie takes place over the course of months, when in reality, it kind of felt like only a couple days. There's also one part of this movie where I feel like a lot of people are going to be divided on, and that's the ending. Now, if I'm going to talk about the ending, I'm going to get into spoilers. So what I will do is that I will talk about the ending after I give my rating for those of you who don't want it spoiled. But apart from that, I got nothing else to say. This is a very well acted, very well written, hilariously smart comedy, and even though there are pacing and structure issues here and there, overall, I had a good time with it. I'm going to give American Fiction an A-. Alright, so Jeffrey Wright's character at the very end of this movie is at an award show where his bestseller wins the award. He goes up, and instead of delivering a speech, we cut to him talking to this movie producer that he was talking to earlier on in the film, and we are presented with 3 different endings. One, we just cut to black before the speech as Jeffrey Wright's character wants to do in the film. Instead, we go on to the second option where Jeffrey Wright's character goes off to find his love interest in the film. In the third ending, which the movie producer loves and Jeffrey Wright's character hates, instead of giving this whole speech, Jeffrey Wright's character is gunned down by the police. This is the ending that they both decide to go with, and it ends with Jeffrey Wright's character and Sterling K. Brown's character riding off into the Hollywood sunset. And just around my own theater, I could already hear the whispers of audience members being really confused by this weird plot turn, and it did take me the ride home to really come to terms with what I thought of it. And after thinking about it, I do think that this is a brilliant ending. It coincides with the themes of artistic integrity in the film, and Jeffrey Wright's character decides to choose one of the 2 sides, either artistic integrity or money. And he chose to go with the money, go with the easy sell. I wouldn't necessarily say that this was a happy ending for Jeffrey Wright's character, but I would say that it is a realistic ending for his character. His life of artistic integrity would have led him down a future of depression and debt. The life that he chooses to live now, even though he has to sacrifice his artistic integrity from now and then, he does lead him to a life of financial security. And I do think that is a very realistic and very interesting take on the life of an artist. Even though it's not the idealistic road, sometimes you do gotta make Johnny Walker red because it will just sell more than Johnny Walker blue, which is technically better. That's the movie's own analogy. The movie knows what it's doing, and I really loved it for that. So if you made it this far, you've either seen the movie, in which case, what did you think about it? Tell me about it down below, along with what you thought of the ending. Or you just don't care, in which case, you should. It's great. Go see it. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click that bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.